Hi everyone, welcome back to I Am Because He Is with me, Tyler Elias, and I'm joined by a special guest, one of my classmates from Grace Prep, Hayden Faust, and his senior project is all about.
Just like physical education and like physical health.
Okay, so I've come up with some questions. We're gonna talk about how physical education and a little bit of sports because we both have played soccer for 4 years and he's played basketball and track and probably some
and
more
a
things.
lot of other sports.
Yes, and we're also going to talk about our experiences with sports and our identity. We'll be talking about how we see or don't see how physical education is linked to or supporting our identity, whether in Christ or just in general, just our mental well-being. So we're going to start off. How do you think physical education plays a role in shaping someone's identity or sports?
Yeah. Well, I've grown up playing sports, and sports have been in my life for my entire life. Like my dad played soccer and basketball in high school. My mom played soccer and track in high school. Like my dad's always been in has done like rec league, and he's been in our church softball team. So I've just been in sports my entire life, and so that's really like shaped like who I am. Like I'm a big like athletics and like go outside and do something because I don't like sitting around. And I feel like just playing sports so much has like played into that because I just like being active, and it plays into the being active and not just sitting around doing nothing. Or like, don't get me wrong, I love the occasional time to sit around and do nothing. But just like how I am, I can't do that for so long. Like I have to get out and do something. Otherwise, I feel like a bum.
Yeah, so with that, I think on a deeper level, there's also labels. So what do you think about labels? Because I think nowadays labels are becoming more popular, whether to gain attention or to like shame or talk down upon someone.
Oh yeah. Well, with labels, it's especially with athletes, like there are like the stereotypes of like different sports. Like like soccer players are the guys who are just like always like soccer, soccer, soccer.
Mm-hmm.
That's like their entire life. But there are other different types of stereotypes. But even like labeling as like it takes away, like sports take up a lot of time, especially whenever you get to a higher level, like even to high school, because you have to practice more so you can stay with the competition. So it takes away that much of your life that you're gonna get labeled as, oh, a soccer player or a basketball player. And just like how you live your life will be adapted around that, because most people who are like really into sports, who have like weekend tournaments, practices throughout the week that just take up so much of their life, and it affects their parents' lives because they have to go to the tournaments and like drive them and all that other stuff. So it doesn't just affect them, but it also affects like the people around them.
Yeah. Do you think people tie like their performance or like their performance ability or how others view their performance, like how you're talking about, with their identity, especially because it can be seen as a negative way, just because nowadays performance is so it can fluctuate so much from having, like you were saying, a good game, which makes them seem as a good player, to a bad game, which can ruin kind of their reputation, and just even their own mindset about their sport. So do you think it's good or bad? What do you think?
Well, there's always good in criticism, but there's also bad. It depends on the type of criticism. But it also depends on who's coming from. If your coach is criticizing you, they're usually doing it because they want to help you. And they want you to do better, and they want you to perform better. But whenever you're trying to place your identity in like how you're playing, and you have a certain standard for yourself that you just aren't hitting, you either have to lower your standard or you have to do something outside of what you're doing to improve so that you can hit that standard. And just the whole thing with how players view themselves, like it's really important that they have a good view of like what they need to work on, and like how they react to things. Because if you're the player that can't take criticism, that when something bad happens, you hang your head, it affects your gameplay too, but also like how you view yourself. Because if you're just like you mess up, you view yourself in the way of like, oh, I'm a failure, I messed up, how could I do that? And then you just let it eat away at you. It becomes this whole big thing about like just like I'm bad. I can't fix this. There's nothing I can do, and that affects like how you view yourself. And so you need to have like a positive mindset in when you play and when you're off and on the court or
So-
field or whatever.
Yeah, so especially because it can fluctuate, like it can go from good to bad. And I think personally, I've seen like a lot of people, or even some teammates, or just other people from other teams, they rely on it so much and they can critique others really hard. Whenever it does fluctuate and people do have their identity set on like performance or just athletics, when it crumbles or when it hits a low and they don't have their identity founded on something that's like secure, like I'm trying to get at like it's not always positive. But I liked how you took it because you're talking about critique and criticism and just I guess trying and wanting to always be better. Not just solely for others, but for yourself. I think that's a good point. But then also, it's hard whenever, I won't say it's hard. I mean, it's hard. But whenever someone gets injured and they can't perform or they can't even, like, they can't do anything, I can speak to this a lot. And I think you can at least a little bit. But I faced a lot of injuries and, like, I couldn't play. And originally, whenever I didn't have my identity securely founded in Christ, I was just at like a all-time low. And I think a lot of people nowadays, it's becoming like more common. So whenever someone does get injured or they can't perform anymore because of X, Y, and Z, like what happens to their identity if it's not founded in Christ? Because you're a Christian as well. So our identity is founded in Christ. Rather than, we're talking more, not secular identity, but more like deep down, like who we are founded upon.
Well, as a Christian, if you experience an injury and like your identity is sports, it's gonna affect you. Like with Jace, like he's like basketball, and then whenever he got whatever happened with his appendix and it got inflamed and he couldn't like play or whatever, like that took a toll on him. But with that, you also have to learn that you're not always going to be able to do what you want to do, and that you're going to have to adapt to a different role, because roles change. And like my freshman year, I definitely had a completely different role on the basketball team. I was just the guy who would get subbed in to give one of the starters a break. And now I'm like one of, if not the main guy that like people look to. And just having that role switch is like, you have to learn. Like you have to be able to take your experiences like on whatever playing field you're on, and the experiences that you have from the Bible and things that you've learned in the Bible, and just like mesh them together. Because if you don't adapt and you don't use what God has taught you throughout your life, it's not going to go well. You're going to look at it as if you were your first role, like if you were just that person who was a player who is just now an injured player, instead of, oh, I'm going to hype up my team to keep them going and keep giving them motivation, and just, again, like finding your role. And you have to learn how to switch up with that.
Yeah, I like what you said. I think what I realized, if you don't know, I've had a lot of concussions, and it's disallowed me from playing multiple times. But one thing I realized my freshman year, whenever I first had it, and I had not been injured before, like ever like that, I realized that playing on a team and with a team is also a community, it's not just we're playing as a team on the field, but outside of the field or off the field, we're still a community. So like hyping one another up, and also because we do go to Christian school, just praying for others and just building relationship with others. And I think with other schools, especially bigger schools, because we're a small school, it can be difficult. And just hearing my friends' personal experiences, it's very hard. But even though not everyone's doing it, I think even if we are injured, that is a great opportunity to just, again, hype everyone up, just checking in and making sure everyone's okay. And just, I think something that helped me a lot is still going to all the practices and games, because I still felt a part of that community. And that kind of helped me with being injured and not being able to play, to kind of just remind myself, like, this isn't the end, and that there's more to playing a sport than just playing on the field. Shifting from, like, injury, another thing that I think I had to learn was the difference between having our identity and our ability, and just being secure in our ability rather than actually gaining confidence, because I'm not confident. But for example, something that was difficult for me to learn, they both seemed very similar, and I thought they were similar, but confidence is more like I can improve, like being confident that I can do better and I can progress, while having our identity and our ability is more like I am my performance. So like it's not like I can get better, it's just like I'm bad, so I'm just bad. I'm good, so I'm good, even if I make a lot of mistakes. Or I'm even like community wise, like if we're just having our identity and our ability and we're not regarding our teammates, kind of just like sticking in our own bubble. Well, it's because there's like the whole saying, there's no I in team.
There's a me though.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. But just like that little analogy. So what do you think, like, in your experience with playing sports, have you been able to tell, or like, do you have just anything? What's the difference between having confidence and having our identity rooted in our ability? And what are the negatives or even possible positives?
Well, confidence is mainly a mindset thing. It's definitely a mindset thing. And just, do you think you can? It goes back to the whole, like, the little engine that could, I think I can, that whole thing. And just like keep telling yourself and finding a good firm foundation, like in Christ. Like he knows I have the strength to do it, but do I know I have the strength to do it? He's given me that strength, but will I act upon that strength to do it? And that would be the whole confidence thing. Then the other part of just like basing it off of like our abilities. Well, Christ gave us our abilities. He's allowed us to develop our abilities, so we can find identity in our abilities. But if that's the only thing, like if the only thing we look at on the, like for me on the basketball court is like, are they a good player? Like Kobe's a great player. He's one of the greatest of all time. But he is an awful person. And people didn't really like him because he was an awful person. But then there are the other players like Steven Adams, not as well known. Like he's a decent player, but he's known for just being a nice person. And there are like different aspects of it. Like, are you a good player with a bad attitude, or are you like a good player with a good attitude? Are you a player that can lift up your teammates or are you just going to degrade them whenever they mess up? And it goes into the whole like building your identity in Christ and showing it in all areas of your life, even in sports, even when it's much harder because you want to beat your opponent.
Yeah, I think one thing, as I've been doing research for my project, there's so many ways to view or different perspectives of identity. So what I've kind of like understood now, identity in Christ should be our like foremost foundation, and there are different identities that we can. I do it with this just because identity in Christ, having our identity in Christ, is like the most important. So in my mind, I view it as two different things, but it's really complicated. But then there's other things that we can see ourselves in or kind of base ourselves in on top of that. But the most important thing of all is that we have to have our identity in Christ. And when we have our identity in Christ, everything else is kind of it's kind of in Him. But as the world, that's just how we've come to describe it. Like even our race or like what we enjoy to do. But it shouldn't control our just our life and how we view ourselves. What should control how we view ourselves? Not even control, but how we should view ourselves is through the Lord, because everything else isn't perfect. The only thing that's perfect is the Lord. So if that makes sense, I don't think you're saying to have our foremost foundation be sports or anything, but it should be Christ, and then there are other things that we can place upon just because Christ is unshakable. And it's just like the stories in the Bible, like despite whatever we may face or whether we're at a high or low, God promises us that He is for us and not against us, and He'll always be there for us despite any circumstance. There's a bajillion things. But yeah. Okay, so now we're going to switch a little bit. We're going to talk about more about physical education because that's what his project is mainly about. So I actually haven't done PE in a long time. So I had to think back a little bit. But I think nowadays people are not having a great mindset about PE. I think even people who like playing sports. And I find it, at least from what I know, and I find it quite interesting. So do you have like any thoughts? Because I mean, I haven't done it in a long time, and you actually taught a PE sort of class at Access Hybrid. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the main thing is with kids nowadays is that it's just PE. We do like a bunch of different things, and people just don't want to do all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And people have going with the mindset of, oh, I have to do this random thing that I don't want to do. I'm going to hate it. So I'm just going to have a bad attitude and just hate on it more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've noticed, especially like even from what my experiences when I was younger, like whenever we would have to do like the dance, like the line dancing, and I'm like, oh, I hate this. This is going to suck.
Line dancing in PE?
Line dance, there's a whole unit that they do, and it's like 1 month of like line dancing and like other kind of forms of dancing. And it's like this whole thing. It's kind of weird. But it's just going into the whole like, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm just going to have a bad attitude about it.
Yeah.
And that's probably what would be like the biggest thing that really affects them.
Yeah. So with that, I kind of wrote this question in a different way, but I think it still relates to this. How can PE classes or teachers or even schools be more inclusive? I was thinking more of the route, like if someone doesn't view themselves as athletic, because from what I remember, PE was like a needed class, at least for some part of your education. But how do you think, even for this, because there's so many things that they have to do, they can't really like just choose a specific, like the students have to do everything. Is there a way that they can be more inclusive or just like make people want to enjoy it more?
It's just one of those topics where it's not fully about what the kid wants, and like part of it is how they were raised up. And something the school can, I guess, try and do better is to try and make things a little easier and a little simpler. But sometimes they just gotta suck it up at some point. Like you're gonna live a life where if you're not physically active, you're not being healthy, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is sure, you might not be as athletic, but you can still do activity to keep your health in check. Like if you're not healthy, you're not, your body's not going to function well, and you're not going to have an as fruitful life. And again, this early discipline of doing something you don't want to do, but still doing it goes into that of keeping my body healthy. And that's probably the biggest thing that PE does, is it tries to instill the factor of doing things to keep my body healthy, moving, stretching, random things like that. Just basic things that keep your body like in shape and muscles moving, healthy lungs, cardiovascular type things, and just keeping you healthy. It's just basic things like that.
Well, thank you for joining me today and filming this episode with me. I really hope you guys like it. So just a reminder, I'm trying to upload once a month. It is a really busy season with my senior project and it being my senior year, but there's more episodes coming up, and I will be collabing with some more people on some more different topics. Next will be about shame and sin, and I'll also have a guest on there from my class. So I just want to remind you, if there was any other topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to send me a DM on my Instagram, because he is pod. And then lastly, I just want to give you the daily reminder. We are because he is, and because of him, we get to live out that truth every day. So talk to you next time. Bye.